Hello, everybody. Welcome to another session of training sessions on Open Security Summit. We are joined by Petra and Sara. They're going to run us through an incident, an exciting incident, which can happen to any of us. I'm guessing. There's no spoilers. I don't know what's going to happen. So if you're new to this summit, this is Open Security Summit. This normally happens on site, but due to COVID, we are live and virtual, which enabled us to have more training sessions before the summit sessions and also go global, which is great. So a few things about the summit and what to expect. We do expect your participation. This is an interactive session. You can't just sit there and listen. This is going to require your interaction, and we do encourage it. We respect you. We expect your respect to our speakers and all the other attendees, which is quite reasonable, I believe. And we do expect you to challenge people. Nobody knows everything, and there are no stupid questions. So, and we're all here to learn. So, be yourself. Ask questions. Don't be shy. Yeah, so also everything is recorded. This session is recorded, and every material you see on the screen will be shared afterwards. Yes, so over to you, ladies.
Okay, so let me share my screen. And I will start the presentation. Can you all see my screen? Or not yet? Probably not yet, actually.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, you probably see it now?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we do.
Right, let's see. Okay, so thank you all again for being here. It's really appreciated. And I highly encourage you to, interrupt me whenever you want and ask a question and discuss anything that I said. I'm not here to teach you. We are here to discuss a cool topic and to interact and cooperate together and possibly come up with some cool solutions based on the scenario. So this session will be run by me and Sara. I'm just going to introduce myself first. For those who don't know me, I am in Glaswell's InfoSec team. I start off as a productivity engineer. On the right-hand side, you can see a slide that I've presented in my interview, which is about me. So basically, I'm a doctor by background. I'm currently studying information security and digital forensics as a master's degree, and I am an athlete. Also, because being a frontline COVID fighter, being a doctor, I have been the target of some articles recently, which you can see there, back home in Croatia and here. And that's it. Sara, over to you.
Okay. I hope everything is all right. Everyone's all right. And I'm Sara. I'm not gonna lie. I'm pretty excited about being here today. And I'm a master student at the University of Hertfordshire, almost done with my master's degree in cybersecurity. And I have a special love for penetration testing and studied abroad in the continents. And I'm really, really in love with London meetups. I have met a lot of interesting people, Petra included, thanks to the ladies of London Hacking Society. And talking about COVID, I think if there's one thing that this virus has brought forward is not stopping the realization for us that these meetups and this collaboration can go on over the web as well. So since I know we have some international attendees, feel free to hit me up on my LinkedIn, my email, and Twitter. I forgot my Twitter. Oh, that's too bad. Okay, so that was pretty much for my introduction. And shall we move on to the scenario? Okay, so our incident response scenario today would be about poor Petra realizing this morning that there was something wrong with her laptop, and it is clear that it's been hacked because she's found some unwanted browser toolbar open, and the single sign-on password is not working anymore, so she couldn't get access to her email. So she immediately notified the IT help desk, and they triggered an incident. So this is the scenario we'll be working on after the presentation. I will repeat it for people who just joined in. We'll be randomly divided into breakout rooms, and that will be in order to create some playbooks to define the activities that should be implemented when detecting, analyzing, and remediating a security incident. So, so I'll be with the information security group, and we'll cover the creation of the data leakage playbook and the lateral movement playbook.
Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about playbooks. They are basically just a set of questions and tasks. We created them in Glasgow in Jira using Jupyter notebooks. These playbooks are used for various scenarios, and they can actually define a procedure. So they're quite useful as a documentation tool, because we will document all these questions, we'll execute all of these tasks, and there will be somewhere a trace that all of this has been done. This is proof to all other companies that we have a defined incident procedure, because when you start cooperating, having partnerships and clients, other companies, they always want to know, do you have a defined incident procedure? So playbooks help with that. Also, playbooks help to trigger further remediation, because the questions in there are crucial to kind of trigger further actions and possibly even create further tasks based on these tasks that are in the playbooks. And while using these playbooks, if you have Jupyter notebooks, you can also create some of these graphs, like based on an incident, you can create the risks, you can create the vulnerabilities, and then you can also get some cool graphs to help you visualize it all and kind of brainstorm on what's next and how can you do better next time. So as you see on the right hand side, there is a graph that we created based on an incident in Glasgow. And you can clearly see that we have vulnerabilities associated with it. We have some facts. So this is all done based on the output of the playbook. So we triggered the playbook in Jira, and we started answering these questions. We started doing these tasks. In the process, we created the risks, the vulnerabilities. We created the facts. And therefore, we created all the people that were involved. So everything is well documented and it's all traceable. For the purposes of this scenario, we have created the same playbook in the OSS Jira. I will show you the playbook right now, but basically, does everyone here have access to Jira, and does everyone here know how to use Jira? I will take that as a no. Okay. That's fine. You can get acquainted with the Jira just by browsing our OSS Jira, and I will click on this link just in a minute to show you the playbook. But then for the purposes of this scenario, we will need you to please create the playbooks in a Word document, or you can use just a notebook application and just create a text document. It's up to you, but just create any text document for the purposes of this. But let me show you how actually this looks like live when you have it. And you can all access this and play with it and just see how it looks like. So this is our general incident playbook, which gets triggered from Jupyter if any incident happens, so that we already have a set of questions and tasks that will kind of guide us through the incident. So everything is well defined. We just go ahead and do these things. We have like incident severity levels. We have the risk matrix here. And then we have the questions. So what happened, who was involved, define the category of the incident, like start Slack channel with incident name, mobilize team. So all of this is all like a step-by-step procedure And you will be creating something very similar to that. So you can feel free to click anytime on this link. Sarah, are you okay to paste that link again in the chat? Okay. You're muted.
I just did.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Thank you.
Share it again.
Cool. So yeah, so basically anyone just feel free to go into this playbook and see what it's about, because you can use it to help yourself orient yourself. So imagine for this incident that we're talking about with the laptop, this playbook has already been triggered. So don't repeat any of the questions that are here. You could potentially, if they're really, really applicable to your playbook and you feel like they're absolutely necessary, then repeat some of them. Just for like demonstration purposes, so that we know that this is what also needs to be done in this kind of situation. But you know, this is roughly what we will be doing today, and then later on we'll see what people come up with. How can we define incident procedures? And for every kind of incident, we try to do a playbook so that whatever happens, we always are ready. We have all the tasks at hand. Okay, so going back.
Can you show us how to use that? So it is questions, but we go in and write something in the comments. How do you want us to use that?
So for the purposes of this scenario, because we will create new questions and tasks, this playbook is just for demonstration purposes. So just so that everyone can go into this link and just have a look what questions and tasks are there, just to get a rough idea what we're doing. But so for this scenario, you don't need to do anything in regards to these tasks or questions, because you will be creating a completely separate playbook. So basically, I'm just showing this as a template, because today we're creating new exciting playbooks.
Okay.
Okay. If anyone has any questions at any point, please feel to interrupt me. Okay, so then basically, as we said, we have the general incident playbook that's been triggered, and that involved, like, you know, setting up a Slack channel, starting an incident on Jira. That's all in the general incident playbook that I've just demonstrated for you. So don't worry about any of the tasks there. You will be creating new tasks and new questions. There will be several teams. The IT team needs to worry about re-enabling me as a user, so to continue using this playbook. So basically, you will have to cover two scenarios. If one scenario is my laptop has been compromised and it's not usable, so I need a complete reset. So what would be the steps? You know, complete reset of the account. Do I need a new laptop? Things like that. The other option is actually no data was on my laptop, so I don't need to worry about data leakage. I can even continue using my laptop if everything is cleared. So just a few steps if that's what happened, if that would be an option. So it's like kind of two little sub scenarios that to think about here. Also, like if there is a data leakage, so if you kind of have to recover my laptop fully, you will have to think whether this laptop has to be used in evidence. So for example, if there was a big data leakage, then this is just for your own, you know, learning purposes. It's good that you don't really touch the laptop then. In that case, you just use an imager to image it with the right blocker, and you don't even touch the laptop anymore if the crime was severe. So, you know, if someone actually performed like fraud through my laptop and there was a huge financial gain to the attacker involved, and this will be used as evidence, then it's a different scenario. And just, you know, think about all the accounts that could potentially be on my laptop, and you know, that will probably just be needed to be sent to the InfoSec team, and they can take it from there. But just you need to think about like what accounts need to be reset. So it's just kind of more like an IT issue to sort out, to regain my you know, business continuity, so I can carry on and work for Glasgow as normal. So in regards to what I said earlier, if the laptop needs to be used in court, basically this will be like if there was a massive data leak here, there will be an incident response team, and we will need a playbook on that. And I will be in that breakout room just to guide it a little bit. But I just want to I'll give you a quick demo, and I'll give you just a few words about best practices for evidence collection. So basically the process of any digital forensic investigation would be identify, preserve, collect, analyze, and report. Now here, especially the acceleration will be on preserve and collect, because it's important not to change the evidence. Identification is also very important, and which I will show you in my little quick demo soon enough. Also, as I said, best practices, it's always good to follow them for evidence collection, and there is quite a good guideline, which is the ACPO guideline, which I will put in references here. Okay, so the ACPO principles would be, we have principle 1, which is basically it has to do with not tampering with evidence. We need to make sure that when we approach the scenario that we don't change the evidence. So we don't take we don't just take the laptop and go browse on it and check the logs on the laptop itself, but we need to do proper imaging with a write blocker to make sure that nothing stays tampered. We'll do our investigations on an image of it. And if we need to actually access the original data, that person needs to be competent so that the evidence stays preserved. Every step of the way, that's principle 3, needs to be documented and logged, and there should be an audit trail. And there has to be a team leader that will be taking responsibility and overall charge of the whole investigation. There is some kind of good practices in regards to evidence collection. So for example, when you access the crime scene, you think about quarantine, you have anti-static bags that you put all the evidence in, you have write blockers, which will prevent any data to be changed while you're performing the imaging, you have your disk imaging toolkits, and you have your forensic analysis tools. There's also a certain procedure that's well-defined if you approach a computer, whether it's turned on or off. So if the computer is on, then you don't just press the shutdown button, but you actually have to power it off. Unless there's any disruptive processes on there, or unless this gives you a good opportunity to actually do a quick imaging and before it gets encrypted and, before any process is destroyed. So this is like a little flowchart based on that. So let me just give you a little quick demo here about basically how you approach a crime scene. What I'll do is I'll start the video on my phone, and
basically you can see my laptop here and you're approaching it. Now what I'll do is I'll set it to sleep, just so it looks like it's sleeping. So I presume you can all see it. Can you all see the?
Yes.
Hi, can you all see?
Mute your other one. Okay. I muted your laptop. You can unmute the other one, the phone.
Okay. Can you see the laptop now? No, you cannot.
I muted your laptop.
Yeah, but I mean, can you see my can you see my screen now from my phone?
No, we see you right now.
Oh, you can see me?
Yes.
Okay, you can see my laptop then now, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Sorry about the little technical slip up. So, if you are approaching this as a crime scene, what do you all think? What would be the best thing to do first?
I would ask you some questions if I was reaching out to that crime scene, if you were available. If not, I would take precautions.
Yeah, and you don't know, like, for example, if it's a different scenario, and might be a suspect. So I might, like, while you're looking at, I don't know if you see the laptop that's standing there on the side. So while you're
No, it's so small.
Yeah.
Yeah, just pin that video to the main screen.
Let me do that. Okay, can everybody see it better now?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, great.
Cool. So yeah, so like for example, if I'm examining this laptop here, you know, someone who's standing by could actually tamper with the main evidence here. So the main thing is to set a quarantine. So basically, put your tape around your crime scene so that nobody has access to it. You don't want anyone, because sometimes you just get 15 minutes to actually get the evidence, because you get a court warrant and you just have 15 minutes to get the evidence. So basically, you don't want anyone tampering with, you know, sometimes you can have 5 laptops in a crime scene. You don't want someone tampering with it. You want to quarantine the crime scene. And then the next thing to do, so if you're going to collect the evidence, what do you think you should take? You're here to get digital evidence. So
Well,
what do
you should be taking pictures first, and you should have
Correct.
gloves on, and you should have surveyed the scene. So
Correct.
pictures of everything.
Correct. Yes. So that's correct. So you will take pictures of everything. You will put numbers towards everything that you think needs to be evidence. So here you're basing yourself on digital evidence. So do you think this monitor has any evidence in it? Is it going to be of value?
Sometimes monitors have like a drive, a memory in them.
Yeah.
The new monitors, but we don't know if.
Yeah, but most of the time they don't. And if you're limited with time, you're probably going to ignore the monitor. Or you can have a look if you can see if you think this monitor will be of any proof. But the main evidence will be the laptop right here. So you put a number here, you take a picture. You have the laptop here, you put the number in, you take a picture. So
you're probably going to also be using a black light on the scene.
Ooh.
A black light?
Yeah. Well, depending on the type of investigation you're doing, for proteins.
All right, yeah. But remember, we're doing a digital.
Right.
So
sorry.
we are here as digital forensics. We don't care. We have gloves.
Well,
to
digital
protect.
forensics would depending. So if you're doing forensics and say the suspect might have CSAM on their computer, then what you're going to want to do is you're going to have the
yes, but you will have a separate team of forensics who will be taking care of proteins and stuff like that. So you as a digital forensic, you just need to make sure that you don't destroy, like you said, if there's any other evidence, you just need to make sure you don't destroy it for the rest of the other forensics, because usually you have like a separate team of digital forensics who are just in charge of the digital stuff. And then you have the other forensics who will take, fingerprints, look for proteins and all of that stuff. From your point of view, like you just said, put gloves on so you don't destroy anything. And that's pretty much it. So then when you approach the laptop, you can see that it's turned on, and you can get some clues about it, like with, you see the lights, you can see that it's turned on. So the next step for you to do is, for example, if you're allowed, sometimes you're not even allowed to take the evidence, like you're not allowed to take the whole laptop. You have to leave it depending on your warrant, but you probably want to see if you can access it straight away. So what you do is, and you want to see the processes. So what you do is you move the mouse, obviously with gloves, which I don't have.
You cannot see it though. It's not quite in the frame.
Can you see it? Okay, so
yes, now we can.
Okay, there's an echo. I will mute. I'm muted on here, but there's still an echo.
You are muted.
Okay. So the next step is you obviously see that there's something going on the laptop. And sometimes you just have a screen which asks for a password. What do you think you would do in that case? So if you have a screen that's asking for a password, you can always ask me to give you the password.
Yeah, I'll put it in.
But yeah, exactly, because some people would do it. So it's always the best step before trying to hack it. And you don't hack it on the spot. If there was a password asking, then you would just take your evidence, try and do the images and things like that. So to conclude this, you see that there's some processes running. Maybe there is some volatile memory going on there because there's something happening. So best thing to do is to involve a team that has like experts for volatile memory to retrieve the volatile memory, possibly do the imaging, which will be with a write blocker, and then you have your evidence. But that's basically a rough idea how to approach a crime scene. While collecting this evidence, it's always good to write. I'm just going to turn this off now.
While collecting, oh, I'm so
I unmuted you. It wasn't your fault. I think it's you should only have one of the speakers on one of the devices on. The other should be on silent.
Yeah, sorry about that. So what I was trying to say, while you collect all the evidence, it is best to have in mind that you have to write every step of the way so that all of it is reproducible. So if you're gonna insert a write blocker and you're gonna do an image of the hard drive, then you have to write step one, insert a write blocker, step, connect a write blocker, step two, you have started imaging, step three, blah, blah, blah. And then you also write an evidence log, so where you write all the evidence and you put what are the labels next to it. So this is kind of roughly the procedure. And, in the scenario, we will have someone creating playbooks, a playbook with all these steps of the way that I've mentioned. So I think it'll be very interesting to see kind of what do you all guys think, what will be the next step? Because I'm pretty sure everyone can give a valuable input in this. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the presentation. Can you see my screen or not?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So basically, I've given you the workflow, and then Sara now will talk about the data leakage playbook.
I have a question, but it's not related to this incident because in this one, this is a corporate laptop and stuff.
Yes.
But if this was a real crime and we went there and near the laptop there was a flash disk, would we need another warranty for that, or how does that work?
So you get, like, on every warrant you have a specific scope. So for example, you have a space. So for example, you have my apartment and you get permission to search it for digital evidence.
Okay.
And then
that would be wide enough.
Yeah, and that will cover it. So you need to then, like you said, you saw a USB drive next to it, you collect that, and like I show you the laptop next to my desk, you would collect that too. But as I said, sometimes you don't have the warrant, you don't have the right to collect all the laptops because you would otherwise go into a company. Because a lot of times, yes, there is a corporate thing happening, but actually it might become a crime. So you still need to do everything as it was like a proper crime scene. So yeah, so sometimes the warrant, you might not get a warrant to actually collect all the laptops. You need to actually just do the imaging. So in that case, you would proceed as I said. But yeah. on to Sara now.
Thank you.
So about the data leakage playbook, just a standard disclaimer, these couple of slides I'm going to show you, they're not a complete set of control mechanisms. Just the idea we thought we could convey through these slides is just to ask a few questions that could in turn relate to the tasks to focus on during the creation of a playbook. So the goal is to brainstorm concepts and tasks associated with the creation of the playbooks itself. And don't worry, I mean, we will get more granular later on when we gather in the break room to actually work on the deliverables. So again, the scenario is the InfoSec team is notified of the incident by the IT team, and they will send over a list of the compromised accounts. So the incident response lifecycle process is structured in a few stages. The first one being preparation. And in our case, all employees and stakeholders, they're already aware of their predetermined role in case of a security incident. So we have some maturity here already. Then the incident gets triggered. So we're in the detection phase, and we are responding with an initial analysis. The authority and the information security team have been alerted already in this case. So we want to make sure for this phase to be successful that we know as many possible details about the hack itself. Then we will need to consider a forensics analysis. Petra already covered it, and we will probably need to have it outsourced from, you know, a third-party company. We also want to make sure that we keep monitoring the detection channel for further intel on the current state of activity on the network, and we need to assess if any data has been exfiltrated, especially when it comes to credential, personal information, and intellectual property of financial records. So we will determine the entity and the impact of the data leak according to the attributes of the exposed data. So as per that, we should ask about the details of the data. So was the data encrypted? And if not, was it current? Was it a legitimate set of data? What's the impact on the business? And what's the impact on the customers? And if data was leaked, we need to identify the data owners and notify them at the appropriate time, which according to the GDPR is without undue delay, and here I quote, when the risk of adversely affecting people's lives and freedom is present. So it says basically we need to notify as soon as possible in case there is a huge risk on the customer's side. Furthermore, we'll need to report to the ICO in compliance with the GDPR, which means within 72 hours.
Oh, you froze.
Yeah.
Maybe try stopping your video so that you get more bandwidth for the audio channel.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. I can do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Sarah?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, kind of awkward. So where are we at? The containment phase. So if you look at the image on the slide, in the first slide, you recognize the NIST incident response lifecycle. And it shows how the incident response team needs to periodically cycle back to the analysis phase from the containment phase. And I think one good example of this is asking the question, are a set of sensitive data undergoing the same risk? Meaning, like, are there infrastructures presenting the same vulnerabilities that led to the hack in the first place? So, for example, are there any additional hosts that are infected, that can be infected by malware or that can be hopped onto by an attacker? And yes, the slide is there. So we will cycle through back and forth between the analysis and the containment phase. And containment, eradication, and recovery activities will be thoroughly carried through. And we will be able to move on to the post-incident activity, which incorporates lessons learned into the cyber incident response plan. And then the cycle repeats. I feel that was pretty much it for the data leak. Shall we see the lateral movement favor? Thank you. So lateral movement. By saying lateral movement, we do refer to a set of techniques that are used to obtain high value assets. So these techniques can be deployed by an attacker who's already inside the network. So for an attacker, lateral movement is not the end goal, but rather it is the means to an end. The hacker would go for the money or whatever the crown jewels are for the company. So initially, when the attacker approaches the company assets, the stage is set by the initial infection. Sorry about that. So the initial infection can be triggered by phishing, drive-by download. In that case, the user has enabled the download of the malicious code, or there can be exploit kits involved. And on detection, we will be looking at the threat indicators. So in this case, we see that the single sign-on password failure and the open tabs kind of give it away that the laptop's been hacked, and they point the incident response team to a very specific direction. So now we can understand the risk factors by analyzing the logs and the evidence. So the question we can ask is, can we determine to what extent services, assets, or any network segments were compromised as a result of the hack? And these are all, I'm just going to repeat this for the sake of clarity. These are the questions that will lead our tasks. It will lead us to, actually write down the tasks in Jira later on and then create the playbook. So we understand the risk factors. We can glean the business impact after that. And so we realized what the point of entrance was for the attacker. So after gaining the initial foothold, this attacker will want to do a very specific set of actions. So the first one would be check the level of privilege he has on the network in order to elevate it. And the attacker will also further enumerate the system and possibly check in ARP table, netstats, ipconfig, and map, or he will try to mount shares. There's quite a few actions that we want to be on the lookout for, but the most important thing though is that the attacker will attempt a credential dump 100% of the time, and possibly using Mimikatz or PW dump, password dump. So according to a recent FireEye report, 100% of the hacks involved stolen credentials. So we can basically say credentials are a requirement for an attack to be successful. And well, we said all these techniques. So we want to be on the lookout for these techniques, and because these are all possible strategies to escalate privileges or to pivot through the network. Other questions we might want to ask is, consider the initial compromise. Are there other assets at risk? So are there cognate assets that can be compromised for the attacker to further breach the network? Can we identify the set of tactics, techniques, and procedures used? Or what are the tools that enable the hack? What vulnerability did they exploit? And still, we want to ask, what is the business impact? I think it's pretty much it. One thing that's worth pointing out is that probably we will need to contact a third-party company for further investigation, whether that is over malware analysis or infection points, forensics, and we will have to have the logs ready to be handed into this third-party company. Yeah, now that we're aware of the attack phases, I think we can move on to the playbook.
So there is 2 more playbooks here.
That's your playbook,
yeah.
your other one.
So we have a project management playbook. So basically, this is a playbook that needs to be created for the management team. They are the ones who are going to be managing all the tasks in Jira. So what questions and tasks could possibly they have? This is they will be handling communications with the CEO, with the public, with the media, possibly with the authorities. And they will be delegating tasks, for example, to the InfoSec team to give a report, or to the incident response team to provide the evidence and the evidence logs. So this is more like a managerial team and a managerial playbook that needs to be created. And then finally, we have a SOC team playbook. So basically, this is the playbook that the Security Operational Center we have. So it will be mostly about receiving alerts, monitoring logs, closing ports, preventing further access to the attacker on our systems. So just, this doesn't have to be an extensive playbook, but a couple of questions and tasks that potentially this team could be facing. As always, I have created a Wordly map for incident playbooks. So we have our InfoSec team as an anchor on this map with, incident response procedures that are still not well defined. We have the, scenario-specific procedures which are just, unique and rare, and they happen occasionally. On the left side and on the right side, we have a well-defined security operations center, and we have our appropriate monitoring systems in place. So this is all kind of more well-defined, repeatable, and the remediation capabilities most of the time are even custom built. So I've shifted them more to the left. Okay, so the next step that we will do is retrieving breakout rooms. What we'll do is, I think we can separate maybe people. I think there was 12 participants the last time I looked. So maybe we can do potentially 3 teams. The first 2 playbooks will be the IT team playbook for restoration of the laptop, and the incident response playbook of the collection of evidence. That will be handled by one team. And then the other team will be the lateral movement and data leakage team. And the third team would be the project management and the SOC team, the SOC playbook. So there's 2 playbooks in each breakout room, and we have 3 breakout rooms. And let's create this. And, it doesn't have to be perfect. This is an open discussion forum. So let's just create something that we can talk about. And then we can debrief after that.
So which are the 3 teams? SOC team.
So we have one team for which we have one breakout room, which will contain the IT team and the incident response team. They will be together.
IT and incident response.
Yeah, they will be like one big team. And then we will have another breakout room for the data leakage and lateral movement, which will kind of be the InfoSec team. And then we have the third breakout room for the project management and the SOC team. So those 2 teams will be kind of piled up also in one team. Not that that can usually happen in real life, but for practical purposes.
One is very technical, one is quite not technical.
Yeah.
Okay. So it has randomly assigned 4 people to the rooms.
Cool.
But you, Petra, you are in the room with 3 people. So I think I will need to move someone.
Yes.
Oh, and I can join one room, right? I can join that room.
Yeah, and I guess if I need you to help me moderate something, I can always go to that room and talk to you.
Cool. All right, I'm opening the rooms.
Does anyone have any questions before we open the rooms? Okay, cool.
So is there going to be like a, if you guys are on Slack, you can message any of us on Slack. If not, I'm not sure how you're going to communicate with us.
I think you can still write in the chat and everyone will see it.
In their own room only.
Oh, okay. But you can directly message someone through the chat, can you not?
I think it's going to be only in the room.
Only in the room. Okay, then Slack.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
I will add a room for questions. No, I won't. Anyway, opening the rooms.
Cool. So one thing, Didar.
Yeah.
If you put me, so don't put me in the data leak and lateral movement. That's where Sara will be.
And yeah, I think we need to be switching around possibly because I'm in the project management and stock.
So yeah, I can switch around between the project management and the other one. Yeah, I can switch around between those two rooms. And if you just stick to that room, but you can feel free to enter any room if you want to give tips.
Okay, so most people have joined their rooms.
Cool.
Apart from 2 people, and no, okay. Apart from us, everyone joined their rooms.
All right, cool. Let's go.
Hello? Hello? Are we supposed to be in a breakout room?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, everybody.
That was good.
Yeah, we had some interesting interactions.
Has everyone returned?
They have to, right? They
Yeah,
don't have a
you
choice.
kicked us out.
I know, but we had 12 before, so we must have lost a couple people.
Maybe we lost some people.
I actually think, although I was thinking, like, I'm not sure if Zoom supports it, it would almost be good to leave some in the main without being allocated into the main room. So almost have one breakout room to be the main one.
Uh-huh.
And we should see if that's possible. Because when I arrived, it was like, hello, where's everybody? Literally.
Don't worry, I picked it up quite quickly.
I know you did, but it came. I was like, ooh, I was actually about to Slack you, going, hey, you know, it's
Anybody out there?
anybody out there? Right?
We're on a holiday.
Okay, so shall we start? Should we start with the incident response and the IT team?
Okay. So, do you want the incident or the IT first?
It's up to you.
Okay, I'll start with IT. So,
Do you want to share your screen?
Oh, okay. But then that's gonna ruin all the You're
surprise.
gonna see everything.
Oh no.
Anyway, so we have some questions and we have some tasks.
Mm-hmm.
The first question we ask to ourselves is, okay, we need to ship this lady a new laptop. Do we have stock? And if we have stock, another question, do we have all the necessary licenses that she might need for different applications and software? And then after understanding the answer to those questions, we check, we start creating the laptop. But again, we need to understand from Petra or her manager what type of accounts she needs, what type of which applications does she need, where do we need to provision her, and that kind of stuff, so that we can start building the laptop. Then we start building it. And then once we build the standard stuff and her access, we want to understand if she needs some files from her old laptop. Was she using anything from her C drive? Or was she using some cloud services or a combination of both? So we need to talk with her and understand those files. And of course, we need to check those files, sanitize them before putting them onto the new laptop. We don't want another incident.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're ready, we want to send it to her. So we need her address, either from her or HR, so that we can send it out. Yeah, this question actually should be much higher. So we have asked to her what type of hardware does she require, well, so that we give her a laptop that satisfies her needs.
Mm-hmm.
And then we check our asset inventory with all the information we got. Does it match what we already had? We need to update that as well. So this is the IT team.
Cool.
Who aim to get her back up and operational as soon as possible. Then there's the incident team, whose purpose is more about, okay, understand what happened, do the forensics. So one guy is actually physically going to Petra's place to retrieve the machine. And to do that, he or she needs an address for Petra again. So you're going to be quite busy, Petra. We ask you, have you rebooted your machine? Because we were not sure if IT has told you not to do this, or yes or no. So we ask you that as well. And we ask IT, was there any endpoint protection on this machine? Was there antivirus? Was this anti-malware? Was everything being logged? we should have asked, which I just remember, was everything encrypted? Was there encryption?
Oh yeah, brilliant.
Yep. When we come to your place, we quarantine the area. We have asked you to disconnect from the internet and from the corporate network if you were on a VPN. So whatever is in your machine is contained to your machine, hopefully. We come quarantine the area, tag the items, identify what we need, take the pictures. Before we shut down your machine, we take an image of the volatile memory before we leave your place. Then we take the laptop and whatever else that we need physically and take it back to the lab. And there we will take an image and start working on that image. So that's
Cool.
how far we got to. And we are really, really interested in other teams' questions or answers to other teams' questions about the incident.
So the thing that's really cool when you look at a question like this is you can see how the more preparation you do before the incident, the faster it becomes and the easier you can handle it. So this could be something that consumes a huge amount of man hours, that asks a lot of very hard questions, or it could be something that can be executed just as a simple playbook where you basically, almost, have all the data almost at hand, and it's just a question of getting the data, the laptop, close, to the next team. And actually, I was talking like we could create a worldly map of this, so you can actually see where the gaps are. I think Petra, I think you created a version of it, right?
Yeah, I created a worldly map of playbooks.
Yeah, but like some of these questions are super powerful. Like we, from the licenses, is a very good point, right? Because you think that's minor, but I remember that once had a problem that we couldn't find the person required that actually knew how to build and how to install a particular version of a software that was on the computer that we had to remove, right? So that sounds simpler, but this is a good example of the more mature an IT operation is, the better you can handle. And actually, you can measure the maturity of an IT operations just by where on the map of the maturity each of these areas is. And some of these are really hard questions, right? Like to understand the list of which users access what data. There's very few companies that have a good grasp of that.
I would add to this as well. It's also important to have these playbooks because then you have the appropriate equipment. So for example, in this case, the team that goes to my place, they need to have certain cables at hand to connect to my laptop. They need a write blocker to prevent any further writing to my hard drive while taking the image. And potentially, quite a good workstation to take with, and which has some, appropriate software on.
And if they are taking the device with them for any reason, they should make sure that they have a Faraday case or bag of some sort.
Yeah, or like for phones, anti-static bags, absolutely. So it's good to have all the equiment.
Yeah. Like there's a really cool dongle that you can plug into the laptop that just grabs every data. But the question is, if you don't have one of those, do you actually have the right forensic gear, right, to do this?
Yeah, and then if you don't, then you probably need to give this to a third party because you don't want to be going there and tampering with all the evidence, and that might be needed in a court of law after.
I mean, think about it. If it's left with the signal still connected, someone could easily delete all the data. They could easily remove whatever they left on there and just be gone. It's not, you do have to be able to have it isolated from the network so that can't happen. Any network.
Yep.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Cool, we've done some forensics here as well. Okay, so should we talk about the SOC and incident management playbook? Yeah, I see a good point from Mark worth asking about personal accounts. that were in use, and what the user needs in regards to that. So who wants to present from the SOC team and the project management team?
Sorry, wrong one.
No one. Well, yeah, I can do it. Wallaby, if you want to go for it, go. Otherwise, I can just.
Either way, if you want to, you can, or I could cover the first part. You could cover the last. It doesn't matter. Actually,
That's fine.
if you can share your screen, that might be the easiest. Actually, I just thought of it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Can we see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. I can scroll down at your request, Wallaby. So go for it.
All right. So yeah. To begin with, we were going over the SOC, and we were just looking at what we know. That's the first question. What do we know when we look at it? You survey the scene. What do you know? Do we know which email, SMS, or link this was from? And the assumption we made early on was that someone had clicked on a link, a phishing link, and that's where the attack began. So, what kind of attack was this? What systems were affected? What triggered the first alarm? Which metric triggered the first alarm? Which platform? And what platform are we using for the SOC? That's kind of something that's important to consider. Who has been affected? Like who on? Yeah. What information do we have from the attacker? So like are they a group, individual, country? What time zone are they in? There are a lot of different things you can fingerprint based on when the attack was done, based on how the attack was done, what kind of metadata there is that was attached to whatever the link led to. All of that fingerprinting that can be done around that. And of course, some of it is going to be off because people do things at different times than than normal for attacks, and they do different things, but it's important to fingerprint there. What type of system does it affect, or is it generalized? Like, are they collecting credentials when you click through, or is it something that attacks a certain type of system? Is multi-factor authentication enabled on the affected systems? And I guess that would that would tell the level of information that they were able to gather. And in essence, one of the big things that we were noting is you want to be able to fingerprint them. How much information do they have? Where did they get this information? What are they aiming at? That's all stuff that we're looking for. So like, what information was entered when this link was clicked, when the person went and onto the phishing site? What information was gathered that wasn't entered? Did they collect the IP? Did they collect time zone, location information? What were they after? All again important in fingerprinting. What information was gathered to accomplish this attack, like beforehand? What did they leverage? So like the type of email that they sent, was it did it have the company logo? Did it have maybe like a letterhead to it? Was it including names about individuals within the actual company? What information did they have that they leveraged, and what are they after? So the assumption that we made next was that they accessed some elevated privileges. So what we were thinking about was, okay, what privileges do they have? What are they able to access? and what kind of escalation is possible from where they are. Like, can they pivot? You know, what do we have? And looking back, have we figured out what the attacker is after? How many systems are they trying to access, or have they tried to access? Do they have passwords, credentials? Have IPs changed? Are they blocked? What all is happening on this system? Just kind of trying to trace and track them. I think the next part, does anyone have any questions on those or suggestions?
I think there was a nice task that we missed on this one. I don't know if you can see the highlight.
Did I skip that? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
suspicious
that
traffic.
is actually, I think, is one of the only tasks we put there, which is kind of trying to analyze the traffic from the moment of the compromised systems and compare it to the previous week to see if there is any difference in the patterns and stuff like that. So yeah.
Cool. So we can use tools like Wireshark and things like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's all good to like specify these things in a granular way, because that comes down into the preparation phase of what Sarah was talking about. So, like for example, a thing would be having, a question could be, do we have like any detection of malicious traffic on our, traffic analysis software? So things like that. So that helps us because, while we answer these questions through the playbook, this also helps us in preparation for the next incident potentially. So we kind of cycle back through these phases of incident, preparation to post-incident activity, kind of all starts coming down to the same thing roughly.
And if you figure out that the attacker is still in the network, do you just watch or do you stop them? That's it.
But there's an element here where this happened in the home computer, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah. So one of the good questions to also ask is that what systems do you have that actually would be able to pick up anything?
What do you mean by that?
Well, for example, like if you are, in the kind of data points that you might have inside your network, might be very different from the kind of data points that you've got in somebody's house. So, if the laptop is compromised in the internal network, you might have, IDSs in the network. You might have, Meraki, records that you can look at. You might go to the DNS server and grab data from it. If in somebody's house, you might have zero, right?
VPN.
Yeah, but you could still have some like intrusion detection software, like CrowdStrike. You could have that. They detect intrusion.
Correct.
So these are all kind of appropriate questions and maybe things to think about in the post-incident activity.
These are good questions. I said but the other thing to add is that you want to also to list every system that could be in there that could have some valuable data. And then you ask yourself the question, do I have access to those logs, right? And then the reason why when I handle incidents like this, I always put a lot of resources, including developers, and I allocate a good chunk of the security team, is because usually you should already be kicking a number of tasks to improve your kind of visibility. So you almost use this as an opportunity, as some of these questions, as you don't get good data from it, sometimes you want to already be evolving, on the kind of data points you have. And this is from the SOC, right? Do you have one thing about the signals from the users? What kind of activity you've detected from the user?
Inbound, outbound traffic?
Well, so if you look at it from a user point of view, right? The user every day leaves a digital footprint, right? So if you now assume that everything that the user has been compromised, that's the worst case scenario, right? Theoretically, every account that the user has, every system that the user has could have been compromised. The attacker could be accessing through it. So you can be looking at, what weak signals can you get from those systems? For example, like, do you have any logins with valid accounts, right? With valid credentials from those places with a different IP address, for example?
Like what all can they access done under the assumption that we had written down? I can't point it out, but the assumption access, it's got this weird thing there. But anyway, right under that, because when they get in there, yeah, I mean, if it's a home network, I mean, you could be doing all kinds of things in there. Well, either way, whatever, you know, you have to follow it out and figure out what they can access, what they can escalate from there.
Yeah, correct.
So that's important.
So when you see, for example, what systems were affected, that should immediately trigger a task, which is get the logs and get the data from those systems.
Yes, audit logs from each system.
From each system. Yep.
Yeah. And who? Yeah. That's probably the InfoSec team doing it.
That's the SOC team.
Is
the
it?
SOC team should be hunting that. Well, with collaboration with the IT team, of course, right? You know, but this is the kind of data that you go now you this is where again a worthy map of this would be really cool, because you know depends on the maturity of the data that you have in SOC, right? Or the operations team. Some of these things will have very easy answers or very complicated answers if you don't have the data, you don't have the data feeds.
Yeah. Some of them might not be even managed by IT or something.
Yeah, and sometimes you even can't get the data, right? Like for example, like when I remember the first time we had an incident in one project of related to Gmail, we didn't have access to the guys who had access to the logs, right? And then a couple of incidents later, we already had access to the data. A couple more incidents, we actually had real-time data feed from G Suite logs, and then we realized that the logs from Google are between half an hour to 4 hours late, which kind of sucked, right? Because if you're trying to follow an attacker, right, literally you are sometimes 1 or 2 hours behind what the attacker could actually be doing.
Good point.
Yeah, I do think that the immediate thing is to throw on Wireshark and start seeing what's coming across. I think that's kind of the immediate thing there.
You might not be able to put Wireshark, depends where it is, right? Actually, I think on this case, the main thing to do from an incident response is to pull the thing off the network, right? Because you don't want
if you're wanting to sever that initially, if that's what your absolute goal is, then yeah. But if you're wondering, if you're trying to be able to reverse engineer something, I mean, it's going to be different, but it's not a honeypot,
Yeah. Cool. So everyone of these should be a question in Jira.
Yeah.
And you'll be amazed how shocking sometimes the answers are. Don't know, don't know, don't know.
Or like assign this question to someone else, and then to someone else, and then this question gets bounced around.
Let me know when you find out.
So in the other room, the data leakage and lateral movement, there was quite a lot of discussions, all very productive, but no questions got written down in the end. I think Sarah can just summarize like maybe 3 main points about this.
Project management.
Exactly. We didn't get to produce anything.
Oh, sorry, we didn't get to project management. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I didn't realize. Sorry about that. Okay, cool. Project management.
Okay. Can you see the questions on the screen, or should I just scroll?
Yeah,
if you go through them.
Yeah. So I think the questions for project management we came up was pretty much trying to understand how many systems have been affected, and this is how in terms of numbers. So not the systems per se, but if, for example, an attacker was able to compromise like 5 systems out of 20 or 50 systems out of 50. So I think the management would like to know how many systems are we talking about? Are we talking about 2 or are we talking about 10? Are those systems production systems, or is just something which is like a box that was exposed but doesn't contain much data or any sort of data?
So this is the exact report, right? This part here, the comms management, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Then actually trying to understand what type of data has been compromised, what actions have been taken in place to stop the attack, or to, exactly to mitigate the attack, what have the team been doing. what preventative measures have we put in place to stop from happening again? Have we notified affected users? Have we notified the ICO? Or actually, do we need to notify the ICO? How long did it took us to stop the attack? Sometimes, if we need to actually send this information to the press, if we say that it took us like 2 weeks to stop the attack, our company will look bad. If it took us like 10 minutes to actually stop the attack, I mean, it's also bad because we were affected, but it's probably less bad. So I think having that metric could be interesting. I mean, we think it could be interesting. What measures did we have in place to slow down the attack in the first place? And by slowing down the attack is like, for example, we had network segregation. We had it's something that whenever we are creating the press release, we can tell to our customers that we take security seriously, and it's not like a free for all. We actually have something in place to slow down, but it didn't quite work as we expected, but at least we had something. So trying to find what we had could be interesting. Is anyone actually start creating a press release, some comms to be sent to the press, or to put on our website or whatever? Do we have an incident manager leading the project? Do we have incident notes with with timelines? Because these might be interesting to notify, to send to the ICO if they want to know. And then we have a few more questions like, to what extent can we isolate the breach data? Is this information being sold or utilized directly by attackers? What will be the cost of remediation, of this remediation? And to what extent will this affect the public view of our stock price and our stock price? And
so the breach data on the dark web is actually pretty interesting. I don't know if anyone has heard of Charity Wright, but she goes over, she has a presentation on the dark web where they actually source with int sites, and they actually will buy back company data off the dark web to keep it from, specifically from the sites that actually are automated. That way it doesn't get put back on. But they'll actually buy back the data to make sure that it doesn't stay on the dark web, and kind of reduce the attack surface there, or kind of isolate the breach data a little bit more than what they would have otherwise. Of course, it can land back on there, and of course there are a lot of bad actors, but because it's automated in some of the places, usually it only comes through once. So a lot of times you can actually get it off the dark web.
I have a few things to add to your area. One is contacting the insurer. I don't remember if you mentioned that. And another thing is internal communications. What are we going to tell our people? What should they do?
Yeah, that's also important to kind of, let other staff like developers and so on know what's happening, so they can continue with, being productive and doing their job, not worrying that, whatever they're doing might get compromised. Good point. Yeah, so very cool. I think these are really good questions.
Yeah. Do you mention in there that they ask you the risk assessment of the risk of vulnerability detected? Is that covered there?
These are all in a form of risk assessment of sorts, probably.
Yeah, but you actually need to do a formal risk assessment, right?
It is, but in a little bit of a different way, I guess, and more spread out.
Yeah, because the risk assessment will come from this, right? So you will have vulnerabilities and risks come out of this that you need to assess. And so the other thing that I would just add here is to create the comms, right? So one of the most important things is to make sure that you have now a regular cadence of communication with management. So basically you need to have somebody who's accountable for, producing maybe once or twice a day there needs to be, while the instance is alive, you have to be issuing internal debriefs to management.
Mm-hmm.
And
also contracts you have. If you have to check whether you need to notify your partners in a certain period of time. So your legal team needs to be involved.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, because this can escalate quite quickly, right? Imagine it's one of those laptops that, or one of those persons that have, you know, people that have a lot of confidential data in that laptop, right? On the computer. You don't have to assume that they could be compromised.
I mean, I think the real first question is who can help take care of what? Because it's a lot of things to cover over a short amount of time. And yeah, you got to do it. You got to do it now.
But that's why you need put resources in. You know, it is, there's no way around it, right? You need, you know, basically in instance, and this is a good example of it only takes a lot of time if you don't have good systems, if you don't have good playbooks, if a lot of these questions take a lot of time to answer because you haven't thought about it. So even the ICO, you know, you can have a playbook that tells the rules of engagement for contact with the ICO, right? Which basically you reverse engineered from your last, you know, X incidents. So now you know that, you know, if this type of data and that type of stuff and this kind of situation and that kind of data point is not happening, then you don't have to contact the ICO versus the other one.
I mean, ideally, all these things are kind of being set up to be done and figured out as you set up the alarms.
But the reality is, right, like if you look at it, in most organizations, there's always going to be a moment where you're going to be living this for the first time. The point is, are you learning from each of those experiences? Which is why I view every incident as an opportunity. So every incident is an opportunity to revisit all these questions in a way that they are very relevant, because some of these questions might not be relevant, but you just focus on the rabbit holes that are relevant while creating, you know, this sort of assets that you get to use the next time around.
Yeah, cool. We should put all of this in Jira then and have new playbooks now.
Well, that's the idea.
Yeah. So yeah, so in the third one, Sarah will just go over a few main points for us to think about in this kind of scenario, and then we can conclude our session.
Cool.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
My network is starting to fail, so I don't know what's going on, but good. Anyway, from what we were thinking in the room about the data leakage playbook, as we said, we didn't manage to produce any deliverables, so whatever I can remember off the top of my head or I can come up with right now. So the first thing that I would think about, so what we said is that so someone asked at some point if we were to still to consider the if we were to consider the preparation phase. So we thought it made sense just to skip that and make a couple of assumptions and to start the playbook itself from the moment the hack was discovered. So the first question I would ask is the endpoint. Sorry, Dennis?
No, sorry, I was making.
By the way, and I'm gonna just brainstorm a few questions, but I don't really want to monopolize the conversation. So if anyone feels like joining in, just feel free to interrupt me. So what I thought it made sense to start from is the endpoint still transmitting information? And so the task associated with that would be isolate the endpoint from a network. Is there a valid login system on the endpoint? And the task would be consult. Is there endpoint protection? And why did it fail? The task would be ensure the cause of the failure and consider whether other assets might be incurring in the same risk. Why did it fail? Why did an attacker manage to get in? Was it a drive-by download rather than whatever else, network worm or a tailored attack? So consider the endpoint protection, and then move on to the services. So what services were associated with the single sign-on password? So maybe the email, the cloud services access, and how can this lead to further compromise? So in order to understand that, maybe you want to ask, what are those services connecting to? Can we exclude connections to command and control servers? Should we also look into trusted IP to exclude domain fronting? What's been traveling outside of the network from those accounts? Have any credentials been disclosed? Credentials that can allow a pivoting or further privilege escalation, since we know that 100% of intrusions of lateral movement comes from, is enabled by a credential dump or credential disclosure. So about the traffic going outside of the network, we want to ask, what is the form of the data that got out? Is that data current? Is it legitimate? Is it personal identifiable information? Is it financial, intellectual property? So this can be used as an input then to classify data breach, and that kind of drifts off in other kind of procedures that we want to have in place. Are there any internal vulnerabilities that are internal to the network that can be exploited? Now, I've kind of run through all these ideas. Is there anything you could add to these phases that I discussed, or does anyone feel like jumping in at this point?
I think you covered it very well. There's quite a lot of there's quite a lot of points that you covered. There's quite a lot of tasks and questions that can be generated here, and that cover quite a bit of these incident phases, which would be detection, analysis, and containment. From my point of view, great brainstorming on the spot.
we could go on, like if you feel like I could go on, but I don't know if anyone feels like jumping in. Otherwise, I can keep going. I don't mind.
I just had a quick side question from the Didar asked about the playbook. FP, is it all right if I share that link with the channel so everyone can have that?
Or can copy paste if you want into the chat.
Sure, I can do that.
It doesn't get too much information, so you might have to do it in chunks. That's what I just experienced. It wasn't allowing me to paste the whole thing in one block.
Cool, thank you. I think we covered a lot of topics here, and we created some really good questions to think about and to potentially put in our incident preparation for when we do our own jobs. So I think that's great work from everyone. I really appreciate everyone participating. Is there anything else that people want to add?
I think it was good.
Cool. All right, thank you. I really appreciate you all being here, and let me just share my screen for a second. And
we have a different incident response exercise tomorrow evening as well, if you guys want to join it.
Do you all see my screen?
What?
Yep.
And I am just going to...
Just for a moment, I keep noticing that smile over there. That's awesome. Just talking about Sarah. Smiling over there.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you all very much for your attention.
Thank you.
We covered all the questions, and we really appreciate your input. I think there was some good creative thinking going on today, and I hope you managed to pick up some tips and possibly have things to think about.
How we capture every single one of those questions and even the raw text, so that we can put out on the session, because that's already a good outcome, and then that could always be converted to a playbook a bit later. But can we make sure that we capture all those questions that were
in the chat,
created?
Okay.
other than the part where Sara has covered?
Yeah.
Let me
Yeah.
go through.
So Sara can put these questions also in the chat in like a text format.
Cool. And then we just need to put them all into the GitHub page.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Okay. Here is from my side.
Yeah, I think we've captured them all. Then we'll get it from everyone, and yeah, we can put it on the GitHub.
Yeah, it doesn't all paste on there at once. It ends after
Yeah, you need to repaste after. Can we identify any suspicious activity?
Or maybe Sara can just share it on the channel after, like she can put it in a text and just share it in the channel.
No problem.
That's easier.
That probably would be the most efficient way for all of us doing it.
Yeah. All right, cool. Thank you very much. And we can end.
Thank you for popping in. It was amazing.
Cool. No, it looked really good. Very good.
Yeah, thanks for popping in, Dennis.